So I have my pieces wrong side up, the original pattern piece and the new material. What I'm doing now is I'm going to trace around the material, but I'm also going to be marking the match marks that I marked on the, you'll see in the photographs previously in the video. You see the 12 and the 12, and the 15 and the 15, etc. all the way around. And that will allow me to line the pieces when I'm done. In certain places like this where the edge is ragged, I'm just marking here and here. I'm going to use a ruler, same with here, to get a straight edge, because this is a straight seam, and on the other piece I have that as a straight seam. Okay, so in order to line up the pieces, I've traced the edge. There's a seam allowance here, which I'm going to add a 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to match mark. So I have a 5, mark a 5. And I have a 7, and I mark a 7, and then I'm going to add a 1/2 inch to the seam allowance. Okay, so now that I have the pieces marked, I'll lift up this pattern. I take a ruler, and as I said earlier, I'm going to line up these marks. This will be the cut line on this particular piece. And the edges will be nice and straight. So now I've got my piece marked out, and some of the edges need to be marked back for the seam allowance, and some of them need to be marked back for the sewing line. So in this one I have to actually add 1/2 inch. So I'll mark it like this, and I'll mark it like that. So in this case, this is the sewing line and this is the cut line. And on this one, this happens to be the cut line, and the sewing line is actually going to be marked back as I show here. Like that here as well. And then I'll connect those with a ruler. So I've got those marked out now, as you can see. So you always have a cut line and a sew line. This is my 1/2 inch seam allowance, which is right there. So on the curved edges, what I need to do is I need to mark off incrementally 1/2 inch, and then I will sketch a parallel line in to match. Now this one I have to add a 1/2 inch, so again you have to be very careful to make sure on the right side of the line or your pattern will end up 1/2 inch too small. And then one more right here. And then what I do is I just basically sketch these together. So you can see I've got the cut line and the sew line marked out on the long edges. And then on the curves, what I do is I've sketched this one already, is you mark back the 1/2 inch and then manually connect it. I've done the same thing here as well, mark back the 1/2 inch. And then what I do is simply sketch it in. The closer these marks are together, the easier it is to do, obviously. And when I sew it, I'll sew it fairly uniformly as well. And I'll switch it in. So now I've got it all marked out. Got a 1/2 inch seam allowance, sewing allowance or seam allowance all the way around. I've got it match marks, so I'll be able to line the thing back up with the other adjacent pieces, and we should be good to cut it out. So I've marked out the next piece here. One thing I wanted to point out is, so this is a stapled edge, so this has been cut back already. So what I've done is I've added some material here to give me extra room to pull it when I'm trying to staple it. Eventually it'll get cut back probably to a similar length, but this way I've got some material to cut off later on. And then these edges are all sewn. You see I got my same match marks, match up to the other pieces.